What's up, guys? Welcome back to Feast or Famine with the Youngs.
We are the Youngs, and this is our first episode in a very long time.
I was like, where are you going with this? I don't even know.
This is our first ever episode. We've never done this before.
Yeah. Wait, is this going up before our... When is this going up?
This is tomorrow.
Okay, so this one is going up before. We recorded
this.
Okay, so this is going up before our recap.
Yeah.
We already filmed our recap.
Yeah, this is a very timely one, so we're gonna bump this one to the first one.
Yeah. So we did. It's been a hot minute. We did film like a.
We still don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We don't.
We're just, I don't know what different. I'm doing podcast.
It looks different,
yeah.
But we don't know what we're doing.
Well, if you're like a longtime listener of Feast or Famine and you're like, what the heck is this? And you're watching on YouTube, you'll get the recap next week when we go over everything. It looks different, yada, yada. You'll just have to wait.
And the recap of
Engage.
Engage.
Yeah, but today we are talking about, drum roll please, Mr. Drummer, sepia-gate.
Sepia-gate, sepia-gate, sepia-gate.
Warenberg.
Fun fact, we actually already recorded this.
Yeah, we for sure did.
And it was...
I will go ahead and just take partial responsibility. And I say partial not because you're the other part. It's because, well, I take partial responsibility for us having to refilm because I was a little heated.
Fired up, triggered, all the things.
I was a little it wasn't a good look, fam. So we also, and that's why I said partial, is because we also wanted to hear.
We want to hear. Anytime there's a conflict like this, the truth is always somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, for sure.
Of both parties. Up to this point, we had only heard the bride side. If you don't know what this is, we'll do a really quick recap in a minute. What this whole thing is, but it's between a photographer and her bride.
But I am really glad that we are recording. Re-recording.
But the Vendor Table podcast had the photographer on exclusively. Like, she didn't talk anywhere else. She hasn't posted anything. This is the first time we're hearing anything about her story. And she actually said, the quote in the podcast, "Don't speak on something if you don't know the whole story." And this is exactly why we are re-recording this episode.
Yeah.
Because
we have some different thoughts and stuff. And
but now we do because we listen to the podcast.
Yeah. The first episode will not see the light of day. So don't ask. But I'm really glad that we're talking about this again because some of my thoughts and opinions have honestly changed a little bit. Are you playing footsies with me?
No, I'm telling you to stop messing with the mic thing.
I can't
with
help
your
it.
foot.
I'm fidgety.
Put shoes on.
No.
There's a couch.
We're at home.
Literally.
So I'm not putting shoes on. You are a weirdo for wearing shoes in the house.
I don't have shoes on.
Yeah, but you do it all the time.
Not as much as you think. Only when I'm doing like the sprinkler
When
stuff.
you're sitting down here and you're wearing shoes, I think it's so weird that you're editing in shoes.
I don't edit in shoes. Almost never.
Not even once.
Not even once.
It's a Crystalia quote. We just watched that last night. Okay,
anyway. No, anyway, that's like if I'm going, I put shoes on to go through the house to do the sprinkler because there's like 5 different spots.
People are going to be like, are you fucking kidding me? Let's get on with it.
Anyway, we're rambling. So
okay,
anyway, we recorded and let's do a real quick recap of what it is.
Full send. No, you go.
So couple hires photographer for their wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Photographer sends gallery, but does all the booking process.
Yeah.
They know the photographer style.
Mm-hmm.
They sign the contract. They pay. Wedding is here. It was a destination wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Wedding is here. They love the sneak peeks they got of the wedding. Fast forward to gallery delivery. They did not like what they had because the color was different and they didn't really like how it looked as far as the processing. And even though...
They didn't like the editing. It boiled down to they didn't like the editing.
So then the photographer tried to...
work with them in certain ways.
Work with them and figure this out and come to some sort of resolution.
Agreement, yeah.
And end of the day, the bride ended up doing a TikTok on this, and then it blew up. That's why everybody has seen this, and it's called sepia-gate.
Yeah.
And since, I don't know what the number is now, but there were like 20 or 30 posts of this bride ranting about different parts of this and responding to comments, and just 30. Like,
so we had,
that's a lot.
Obviously, like, we're going to cover this, right? Because it's
relevant.
And it's relevant in our industry and relevant to this podcast. But we also did get requests from several of our listeners asking us to talk about it. So here we are. And we're going to give our thoughts, opinions, and you know us, we always just keep it real over here, but we're also kind and considerate of other people's feelings and businesses. So we're going to keep it respectful for sure.
And also, I want to note, we have heard both sides based on what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So all the brides' videos that we've seen is out there. And then
I will say I have not watched every single one. Guys, I'll be honest. I was sitting on the couch a couple days ago and I was scrolling on TikTok, like just on my regular For You page, and this bride's TikToks keep popping up. And it was before we recorded the first round of this episode. And I told Alex, I was like, I gotta stop watching her post. Like, she's legit irritating the shit out of me. Like,
Yeah.
So I have seen a lot of her TikToks. I have not seen every single one of them because at this point,
they
I'm
all
not
paint
gonna
the
lie.
same picture.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. She's kind of getting on my nerve. So
But we're trying to be non-biased
yeah,
here.
yeah.
What we've seen paints a good picture. We do have some insight that may or may not have been seen. Maybe it was, but I do have some things. But then we also listened to the vendor table with this photographer, and since there's so much less of that out there, my notes are based on that podcast episode, like what she said.
Yeah, for sure, same.
And then I'll interject like what she said, and then what will fill in the gaps of what the bride has been saying.
Yeah.
So do you want to start go
ahead and just kick it off. And I have notes, and I'll just piggyback off of because your brain is, I think, more organized than mine in this matter, because mine's just like scrambled.
Okay, so the first thing that I have been noticing ever since this started was, well, you need to make sure that when you're booking a client that you're sending the full galleries and making sure that they know what your style is specifically and all that. The photographer did send
a full gallery.
That she was very proud of, and she sent all sorts of PDFs and
she sent like a wedding guide that had, obviously we have a wedding guide. It's not done, so don't yell at me if you're one of our clients. That's why you haven't seen it yet.
It's
a work in progress.
Game changer.
Like a wedding guide, like obviously you have content in there. It's going to show your images. And like you just said, the photographer did send a full gallery. So this bride knew.
And she
had very clear expectations on what to expect.
And the bride also said that she had seen her portfolio on her website also.
Yeah.
So she was very well aware of what this photographer's style was.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's important because if you listen to the legal page, she also put a podcast out that is a really good friend. I had several conversations with her about this topic, and then also listened to her podcast, and we talked more about it. She gives a good perspective on the legal side of it, and we can touch on that here and there. But this one thing is important because as a photographer or a video vendor, you want to make sure that your client sees the best representation of your work so that they know what they're going to get. And then within that, your contract needs to actually have a clause that basically...
The creative clause.
There's two of them.
Yeah.
So one is the first part of that is the client understanding, like, and saying, yes, I've seen your work.
I acknowledge
what it looks like, and that's what I'm probably going to get.
Yeah.
The other part of that is the creative and artistic clause is that as your photographer and you seeing my work, you acknowledge that this is my style. Mm-hmm. So that's important. If she hadn't seen that, then it'd be a totally different story here.
Yeah, let's pause on that though for a second, because I feel like some of the brides' TikToks, and I do align myself with this to a certain extent, but she made some comments on one of her TikToks that was like, it's not about the art. It's not about like how you edit the photos. I mean, obviously like she's not happy with how this photographer edited them, but she's like, it's about capturing memories first and foremost. And I do agree with that. Like, I do agree, we as photographers have a job, and the job is to document, period.
Document a very important day in somebody's life, or
first
multiple
and foremost.
days.
And I think, my initial response to this was like, before hearing the photographer side of it, it was, and I still do, like, it's there's a gray area, and I still do align myself with this for the most part, but like at the end of the day, I know that I'm an artist, and that's great, and I love that, but I'm a business owner first, and part of what my job is as the business owner that I am is doing my job the right way, and documenting it regardless of how I'm going to edit it is the most important thing to me. So like when it comes down to the edit, I do feel like there are certain moments, and I talk about this actually with our clients from time to time. There are some moments that I will edit specifically differently because it evokes emotion. It evokes emotion differently. Like a black and white image, I believe, like can bring out emotions in a way that a colored image can't. But like regardless of if this bride, what am I trying to say here? Regardless of the editing style, it's about documenting the moment, not the preset that you slap onto it. So I think my initial response at first was like, this photographer should have just like given them to her without like any pushback. But I think that my views have kind of changed a little bit.
Oh, okay. I was confused. Like, wait,
yeah,
that was your initial thought.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
But my views on that have like changed a little bit.
Because you have to be a business owner.
Yeah.
So, with that said, there's two kind of notes here. The first thing is, in the timeline of events that we learned from the photographer, it was a 2-day wedding. They did the rehearsal day, and it was it was a destination, like I said, and then there was the actual wedding day. The photographer sent previews, sneak peeks.
Same day, by the way.
Same day.
Which
for
is
both.
like, I just want to highlight that. She did same day sneaks for the rehearsal dinner and for the wedding day.
And that's actually it.
That is good service.
If you're listening and you're a photographer or videographer, this is what is going to set you from one.
Set you apart.
It's going to set you apart because they're on a high already. So they're going to post anything they get, even if it's cell phone images.
And
if you send them the professional stuff, at least a little bit, that's what they're going to share because that's what they paid for.
And for it being a destination wedding, and she sent same day.
Yeah.
That's good service.
She sent those, and I'm sure it doesn't say in her contract that she does that because most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's just like one of those over-deliver things.
Right.
But when she sent those, the client was raving about it.
Yeah, I have that written down too.
And she said, in all caps, quote, we love these.
Yeah.
And apparently she proceeded to make some prints of them, posted them everywhere to social media. And these were just the sneak peeks. Fast forward to when the negativity started. The photographer sent the gallery, and then about a day later, according to the photographer, is when she
started
received
asking for like minimal requests
from the client saying, she wasn't super happy. She was looking for specific groupings that maybe she didn't see before.
Can we have this one in black and white? This
black
one
in
in
white
color?
And then
which we all have had that. That's a very normal thing that happens, and
sometimes you overlook like something, like maybe you called out an image that wasn't supposed to be called out, and you go back and like, oh, my bad, that here it is.
Yeah, and like asking for a black and white image in color.
Or a color image in black and white.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I will say sometimes I'm like, hey, like this moment is in black and white because the color, like I tried to give you both, or I tried to give you just color, and like it just didn't work. I promise you, like it's gonna look better in black and white. Like just trust me.
And like we always, if you listen to this before or watch this at all, we always talk about having a why for your photos. Yeah. If it's black and white, there's a reason for it.
There's a reason,
and
100%.
It makes you feel a certain way that having that same image in color just doesn't do. But if a client says, hey, can I get this in color? We're going to tell them that, but then also give it to them in color.
Yeah, because it's not that serious. It's not that big of a deal.
So maybe they want to hang it up in their house and don't want to hang up a black and white photo. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. She fixed those things. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward to the next complaint. Because this was already starting.
The bride is a makeup artist. Is that the next thing that you have?
Yes, the bride's a makeup artist, and she did her own makeup.
Did she?
I think that's what her TikTok said. The first one.
I don't know if she did.
I think she did her makeup.
Okay.
So she knows what it was supposed to look like.
Well, I don't know if she did.
I think she did.
Okay. Well, regardless, she's a makeup artist, and she felt like her makeup in the photos didn't look how it looked in real life on the wedding day. And so she asked the photographer for editing to be done on her makeup and a couple photos of just her.
She wanted some makeup enhanced and head swaps.
Yeah.
And that was what she requested. But I will say her complaint, I think, is valid because of the style of photographer you hired.
Yeah,
because
like your blush is going to look more orange
and more warm
than it is maybe in real life, because that's the style of editing that the photographer has.
Yeah, and that's, I mean,
yeah,
the photos that I saw for the most part were true to.
Yeah.
I think there was some overprocessing done a little bit, but at the end of the day, it was still on par with her style.
Yeah, definitely.
So what she was asking for wasn't necessarily
So I think
what she would have gotten in the first
based
place.
off of what we saw, the photographer did do those requests, but it more so looked like, and the photographer did clarify what she did. She was like, they thought that I like went in there with Photoshop and, you know, legit changed her makeup. And the photographer said, I did not do that. It was just a matter of like enhancing saturation in certain areas, shadows and things like that. And so she went in there and fine-tuned it and thought that she was doing the right thing of what the bride was asking. But I think that the bride didn't really know. I feel like she had an idea of like, I don't really know what to ask. Like, I just know that I want my makeup to look how it looked in real life. And maybe even at that point, even at that point, she didn't even realize it was the editing style that she wasn't liking. But like, she was starting to pick apart the things about herself that she didn't like, and then it finally came to conclusion of like, oh, it's the editing.
So with that said, the photographer also made a point of, like I said, this the right is always in the middle. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I didn't realize from the bride's side, because she's not going to make it herself look like she's wrong.
Yeah.
At first, this is the quote from the photographer. At first, color was never a complaint or change request. My main concern, this is what the bride said, my main concern, the bride said to the photographer, her main concern was just how the makeup looked in the photos. And I said, I have a note, is that not the same thing? This is where I'm like, the photographer's right, but also if her makeup not looking accurate was her concern, that is 100% a complaint about color change.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And like the photographer said that she doesn't believe that there was a complaint about the color initially. She just wanted her makeup changed. Mm-hmm. But that's the same thing.
Yeah.
The color is directly parallel to what the makeup looks like.
Right.
So if the makeup didn't look like what it looked like, that means the color wasn't what she wanted.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not throwing shade at the photographer, but we need to make sure the technicalities are right.
You know that, like, if you're a photographer listening to this, you know this. If you're a client, maybe you don't quite understand what goes behind, when we're editing. But if we're editing in our HSL slider and we're adjusting the hue of the orange or the pinks or the reds, orange, pinks, and reds are all kind of loosely together, right? So if you're wearing pink blush and there are pink flowers behind you and you change that slider, it's going to adjust both of those things. Mm-hmm. Like, it's going to change that.
Every orange in that picture, anything that has orange in it.
Yeah. And so, as the photographer, I should know that. Okay, if she wants her blush enhanced, I'm going to have to do it a very specific way to make sure that it doesn't change any of the other color tones in this image. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the bride realized that or not. It's hard to tell what she knows and what she doesn't know, because at this point I feel like she knows everything.
She's
or
an
at
expert.
least she thinks she does.
Let's not throw shade. We're not throwing shade.
I'm truly not trying to.
I'm just trying to find the holes in both sides. That's what we can come to the conclusion that this is why this happened.
So after the makeup stuff.
Yeah, so she said that wasn't color, but she made fixes to a couple of photos. The bride was not happy with them.
Yeah. So she asked for the raws
of a few images.
Of the ones that she was specifically was not happy with her makeup. She wanted to, she wanted it to be like it was in real life. So the photographer sent her, after going back and forth about the makeup thing, sent her 7 to 10 raws on those specific images. And
raw basically means it's like no color processing, and it's got so much data in it.
Let's pause here and talk about, like, the vendor table did this. I feel like they explained it really freaking well. But if you don't listen to their podcast, I do want to like just cover this as well, just because I felt like they explained it so good. And we get this question often.
Like, what is a raw image?
I want to go over what is raw, how is that different from what we deliver, and then also copyright.
We'll get to copyright in a little bit later, because there's another topic that... So on the vendor table, they talked about, from a client perspective, when they're asking for a raw image, they probably just mean unedited, which is and is not accurate. Correct. And what we tell our clients when they ask about this is raw is a file format. It is not a type of... It's not like the image itself. A raw image has metadata in it, deep down in it, that allows you a lot of leeway for editing. So you can change the color temperature from what you shot in camera to what you want it to be, or if you made any kind of mistake like that.
It's in a format where it's at its most like
raw, uncompressed state.
So we can manipulate it
without degrading
the image as much as we want, basically.
Yeah. So these files are large, for one, and you have to have certain programs on your computer to
even open them.
Now, I will say, this is something that they didn't say on the vendor table. There are a ton of consumer-based photography editing software or apps that do take raw images. You can put a raw image into it and it will understand it and it'll work the same. There are a ton of them. There are a lot that don't, and you have to have a JPEG.
Yeah.
Which JPEG means that you have a lot less leeway, and the more you color the image, the more degraded the image gets.
Yeah. But at the same time, a JPEG is not a bad thing. Like, almost every photographer will deliver a high-resolution JPEG. That's what you're printing. That's what you're sharing on social media.
You can make a JPEG a billboard.
Right. That's what you want, is a high-resolution JPEG, and that's what we deliver.
Because you don't need all the extra data, so the file size can be smaller.
Yeah. But we actually have something in our contracts. Obviously, we have, we will not deliver any raw images. Okay. That means the raw file format, but it also does pertain to unedited images. And there's a reason for that. And we can go back to that if we want. But another thing that we have, just for a video real quick, is we have a little portion for delivering raw footage. And it's the same thing. It's unedited, yes, but it's also a .raw file.
Some of them.
But
I don't so it's a little bit different with video. Only certain cameras shoot .raw format, but they also shoot certain formats that are a similar state, just not the full uncompressed raw. It's essentially a compressed raw format.
So to make sure that like something like this situation doesn't happen, we actually have in our contracts that our clients have to initial next to this clause that they understand that we will not deliver any raw files, period. And it's an extra step that they have to take to initial that clause, because we're like, this is not going to be, I get it. Contracts are long. You don't freaking want to read them. There's a lot of they're important, but there's also a lot of legal jargon, and sometimes they're hard to understand.
So people skip a lot.
So yeah, they skip around. They, they just read over, they scan. So that's one of those things where we're like, this will not be something that we allow our clients to look over, so we make sure that they have to initial it to actually submit the contract.
And it just adds another level of security for you that they not only sign the contract,
but then they also understand.
They initial this clause.
Yeah.
But it also makes them actually read it so that they understand what they're initialing.
Yeah, for sure.
With that said, those 7 to 10, because I was curious about this initially too, the 7 to 10 raws that she sent to the client, she sent just trusting.
Yeah, she had no.
There was no NDA.
Agreement.
There was no agreement. I would say that
that's the firm's.
That's her trying to take the high road.
Yeah.
However, I would have probably still sent any raw stuff with a disclaimer that basically they can't use this in any way outside of personal use for themselves to print or post on social media.
And I think
whatever.
that in the very beginning, I was like, you just need, as a photographer, as the business owner, my stance on this was I would have just done anything just to make sure that she was happy. Like, I just want my client to be happy at the end of the day, and I still definitely feel that way, but there are things that need to be done to make sure that you're protecting yourself. And I do think that this is the first mistake that this photographer made, was sending these raws, because it opened up a can of worms for her. And
there was already back and forth that there was just not,
yeah,
there was already indications that this client was not going to be made happy.
Yeah, I think that this is where everything took a turn. I'm not saying that she shouldn't have sent the raws. I think that her doing that is fine. I think that there should have been an agreement in place first.
Yeah, like, hey, I'll send these, but you need to acknowledge this as well. And maybe she didn't think about it because she was just trying to be done with it because it's taking up so much of her time.
Yeah.
I get it. It's just,
we learn
things in hindsight, and this is what we're doing.
At this point, she's already going above and beyond to try to
appease her client.
To
even
please
though
her
she
client.
100% fit her contract, and her contract was executed like it was supposed to, and that was that.
Yep.
Okay, so the next thing that happened was she sent those raws. The bride re-edited those photos, and that's what you saw on her TikTok.
And she also made, maybe this is after that, but she emailed them side by side. Like the photographer's edit with her edit.
I'm getting that. The PDF that she made, the
bride.
That
came after that.
Yes. So I'm not there yet.
Okay,
We're not
go
there
ahead.
Yet. So the photographer, or the bride edited these the way she thought they needed to look. And frankly, the edits looked good. However, they are not the same style as what she hired.
In fact, they're completely opposite. Completely opposite.
And one thing that photographer said, which this gives me the ick, but I know what she's trying to say, is the style that she edited the photos to, the bride,
were light
and airy or true to color.
Yeah.
True to color is more accurate than light and airy.
Right.
I think light and airy is too much of a vague term that should just go away, because
you can't just handcuff yourself into something like
light
that.
and airy is just as vague as saying dark and moody.
Right.
So anyway,
let's just nix that. Let's just not even.
This is just showing the bride's colors, and that she just doesn't understand what she wants, or
now
something.
She knows what
she knows what she wants, but I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like, you hired.
This is where she's like. This is where the bride is like, she's not saying this, but in her mind, she's like, obviously what I want now is not what I wanted before. Yeah. And so she's showing these side-by-side comparisons to the photographer, and the photographer is like,
these aren't the same style.
This is not what you hired me for. This is not my style.
It is not the same at all. And that's why having that clause in your contract is so important, because you can say, you hired me for this style, not this.
And so when this happened, this is where I'm like, this is low key, so icky to me. She did the bride made a whole PDF and then continued to dig deeper on what she didn't like about the editing, and how she felt like things weren't, good in certain areas, and what the photographer didn't necessarily do well based on what she thought. And at this point, I just feel like it's like you're just still digging and picking, and honestly, bullying. It's very much.
It's very Mean Girl.
Very
mean girl.
It's
total Mean Girl vibe. That's what I've been seeing, and that's what my heart has been going to. This is Mean Girl vibes. So she sent the PDFs to the photographer, said she's still not happy, so they got on a call, the photographer and the couple.
Yep.
And they were just not able to come to an agreement. So the idea for the bride to purchase the raw images was brought up. The photographer said she did not remember fully what was said in the conversation because it was months ago.
Yeah.
She did say, quote, "In my contract, copyrights are 4K. I probably said that during the meeting." Copyright.
Yeah, copyright.
To buying the full copyright to the images.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in just a second.
Yeah.
So when it came down to it, after she said,
she wanted to process.
Let me process this, think about it, and I'll let you know what I think. So one thing that the bride kept saying is that the photographer refused to sell her the raws or give her the raws, and that she was only wanting to give the raws for $4,000. That's not what she offered.
Right.
The offer was the
3K.
raws for $3,000 or the full copyright for $4,000. So she could have gotten the raws, but a limited use of those images.
Well, Alex, tell us what the difference is.
The difference between just buying the raw images and paying for the copyrights is that once you pay for the copyright no longer belongs to the photographer. The photographer can no longer use those images without your permission.
Yep.
And that's it. You have full use, full reign of all those images, whatever you want to do with them. Buying the raws in this situation would have just been here's the raws, you can edit them, you can use them however you want as far as a personal use per what the contract already says. So print use, social media use, those sort of things.
Yep.
That's what the difference is. And in my opinion...
We get that question all the time about, well, I own the images, right? No, you don't own the images. You have a print release. That's the difference, is when I deliver my galleries to my couples, they get a print release. It allows them to print their images and share them on social media. And of course, you're look at my wedding photos. They're my wedding photos. Of course, babe, they're your photos. These are your images. And you can print them, you can put them in your home, you can put them on social media, but you do not own the copyright.
You cannot use them to make money. You cannot use them in a way that we would deem inappropriate, like publishing to a magazine, because we want to make sure that our work is being represented the way we want it to be represented.
Correct.
In those aspects.
Correct.
Basically, it's you just need to understand U.S. copyright law. When it comes to photography or videography, the person that clicks that shutter button is the person that owns that photo, except in situations of work for hire. And what I mean is you hire somebody like a second shooter to come in to photograph a wedding under your company and then hand over those images. In those situations, they don't own the rights to those images. You do, because it was a work for hire situation.
Right.
But you also need to have a contract that states that.
Yeah.
Because then you get into some sticky ground on who actually does own those images if something were to happen.
Right. Right.
So anyway, back to these numbers. So I have two thoughts here. A, the copyright price, buying the full copyright,
I think it's low.
is a steal.
That's low.
However, if she wants to stick to the copyright price for $4,000, I feel like the raws for $3,000 is a little too much. I feel like it should be $2,000.
Yeah. It's too close in price.
It's too close in price. You're telling me that the difference from them just having personal use rights for editing these images themselves to owning them completely and taking them from you is only $1,000.
Yeah.
That's I feel like that's too close. I feel like the raws should be about $2,000.
Yeah.
If you're going to charge $4,000 for the copyright, or you need to charge more for the copyright.
Right. Yeah.
But that's semantics. That's however you value it. She obviously knew what she valued them at, and that's what she chose. But
I do want to add something here. I did, because everybody's stitching all of this, and there's other photographers that are stitching it, posting it on TikTok. I did see a photographer on TikTok that stitched one of the bride's TikToks and basically was like, I think that $3,000 for the raws is a steal. I charge $8,000 to shoot a wedding. I'm going to charge $8,000 for the raws, because if I have to give them up, then what did I do it for? I did it for nothing. I don't agree with that statement.
I think that's one of those things where raw versus copyright is simply giving the raws versus giving them the copyright is being confused by these photographers that are doing stitches and responding to these.
Yeah.
And it is so much not right. It sounds to me like that photographer saying, I shot $8,000 for the wedding. If you want these, it's $8,000. I think in her mind, she's selling the copyright for $8,000.
Yeah, I think so too. But I just wanted to touch on what she said, because she was like, I basically, if they want to purchase that, I'm going to charge the same price because I basically wasted my time, is what this photographer said. And I could not disagree with that more.
That's a horrible attitude to have.
Yeah, regardless of if my images are being purchased for copyright, I still documented, and I'm gonna die on that hill. Like, that is our freaking job. I still did the job, and it's not a waste of time if you're documenting something so important, regardless of how it's going to be edited or whatever is going to happen to the images, as long as they have them. So for that was like a random photographer, by the way. Like, for a random photographer to say, if you're gonna just purchase the copyright of my images, I've wasted my time documenting your day.
That tells me there's a lot of photographers that think that.
I'm sorry, that's bullshit.
I think there's
that's
very
some
telling.
bullshit.
That's very telling, and it's very disappointing to hear.
Yeah.
Because I promise that because she said that, that means there's a lot of other photographers that feel the same way. And
are you shooting the wedding for you and to show off your work, or are you shooting it with the right intention of actually documenting and giving somebody memories to look at? Like, what are you doing?
I think this photographer in this situation, like,
I think she actually gives a shit.
Sepia photographer, she gives a shit, and she did it right. But I want to address this chick because I didn't know about this.
Yeah,
this got me fired up.
I held it back. I don't remember. Truly, I don't remember who it was. It was very random. I didn't save it. Maybe I should have. I wouldn't. Even if I did, though, I wouldn't say the name because that's just disrespectful. But I thought that it was so interesting to hear a photographer say that. Honestly, I was like, holy crap.
It's frankly shitty for them to say that. And here's the deal. There are so many photographers that are just trying to get to the uber luxury levels and shoot weddings for people that are so high A-list class.
Because they want the clout. It's not about you. It's not about you.
No, what I'm saying is when you get to that level, how many times have you heard Lindsay and Cherish, this video, but the same idea, say that they don't have any recent weddings that they can share because
they have NDAs.
They have NDAs with these uber wealthy people that don't want their stuff out there.
You know what you walk away with? You walk away with pride and self-assurance, knowing that some of the most A-list people in the world trust you and how you capture and document memories and art to hire you for one of their most important days, and that is your reward, not being able to share it.
But at that level, it's okay for them because when you are at that level, shooting for billionaires and A-list celebrities, and you honor their wishes of not sharing it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to tell their billionaire and A-list celebrity friends that when they get married, they should hire you. So you get more of them. And it's the most selfless thing. And if you're trying to argue that, well, that's how I get more work, yeah, maybe now.
Yeah.
But if this is your mindset now, you're never going to get to that level.
Right. Which that's a little bit of a tangent. Not everybody wants to be at that level, but that is a good point to make.
And not everybody should be at that level. That's another tangent. That should be that's another topic. Anyway,
so let's keep going.
That was so let's see. She offered $3,000 for RAWs or $4,000 for copyrights. We explained what that was. So then the client pushed back on that, didn't like it, and this is when she brought the PDF and more concerns. Yeah. At this point, after she offered the RAWs or copyright. This is when the bride brought the PDF in. And so after that, the photographer, I applaud her for this because I would have been wanting to rip my damn hair out. She was still trying
to come to a compromise.
And work with this bride who at this point I'm like, you know what?
And I think the photographer said on the vendor podcast, she said, I still was trying to work with them on the editing. That was like basically how she stated that. I don't know what she meant by that. I don't know if she was like, if her intention behind saying that was like, I will re-edit the whole gallery. That would have been so kind. I don't know if that's what she was saying or not. But she did state that she was still trying to work with them on the editing when she responded with the whole PDF thing. But then she also restated that, you know, if you guys still want to purchase them, this is what the price is going to be.
Yeah, and the way I took what she said as far as her offering to do more re-edits was not doing them for free because earlier she had mentioned...
She did charge for some.
That she had reached a point where she said, there are things that I'm willing to do without question, which is like the re-edits that she already did and all that stuff. But it got to the point that I was going to be doing so much extra work.
You have to charge for your time.
That you have to start charging for your time. Because if you're going to have to re-edit the entire gallery, it's going to take a long time to do that. And I think when she offered that, it was a compromise to, instead of paying $3,000 for these raws, pay less than that and I'll re-edit it for you.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that also needs to be in your contract.
Yeah.
That editing rates and stuff like that. I'm sure it was probably in her contract.
Yeah.
That beyond a certain scope of editing, it's going to cost this much to edit more. Or to re-edit.
I'm curious to know if like what the wording was like on that email, because I feel like if I was this photographer at this point, I do feel like I would have been, you know, she's saying that she was still trying to work with them on the editing, but like how specific was that? Like I feel like I would have maybe offered, okay, there was like over 2,000 images in this gallery. I would have been, pick out your top 150 photos. And based off of my own personal experiences that I'm not going to necessarily dive into, just to completely compromise and also protect myself and my business, I maybe would have just altered my style a little bit to appease her for like just 150 images to just get her off my back, I feel like.
Yeah, so she has a good chunk of them that are exactly how she wants, but then that's it.
Yeah. And that something as simple as that, putting my pride aside, editing them the way that she's requested, or at least trying, maybe even tweaking my style, which I don't necessarily agree with, but like it depends on the situation.
I think in this situation you wouldn't have done that.
I feel like it could have, potentially is the big word here, it could have changed the trajectory of what happened.
I'm going to go ahead and say that you wouldn't have done that in this situation, and I think this is why this photographer also didn't do that in this situation, because
I do
you're
feel like
talking about at this point in the situation,
she's already given so much.
2, 3, 4 different instances where the bride was complaining about something else, and still was not able to be
I get that.
satisfied with what you're offering.
I get that. It's like, how much more can I do when you're still just not going to be happy, period?
That's a point
there's just like a point of contention there.
I think that was her basically saying that I'm not going to make her happy, so I'm just going to offer to re-edit it, just maybe, and I'll make that. I assume that she would have made those little adjustments.
Yeah. But I wonder if that like was ever something that they talked about.
I mean, maybe maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But here's the other thing: is within these last couple communications, because here's where it gets messy, and it just makes my blood boil at this point. Within these communications, the bride made a threat saying, "I hope I don't have to take this to social media if this isn't resolved in the way we want."
That's a threat. That's bullying. That's not okay. Period. And
there was already some social media posts alluding to a, quote, situation prior to this going public. So, at this point, the photographer offered to re-edit.
But she didn't say it to what extent.
She didn't say in this interview to what extent.
Yeah.
But at this point, the client ghosted her.
Yep.
Zero communication after that.
And then
immediately starts her TikToks.
TikTok. Yeah.
Even though the bride said it was not my intention for this to get as big as it was, to go viral, or anything like that, she said that. Mm-hmm. I call big fat bullshit.
Yeah.
Because based on this, and based on what before I heard this interview, based on what I've seen, it says 100% the opposite. The fact that she's, quote, threatening that she doesn't have to take this to social media was already on social media about a situation.
Yeah, I mean, the bride literally made one of the TikToks that was like, I never expected this to blow up. Yes, you did. And the reason why you did is because before you even went to TikTok, you threatened social media to the photographer.
And you obviously know I said this in the recording that we made that we're not using. Yeah. But if she has TikTok, she knows this already. If she's familiar with anything social media, she knows what would make something go viral. Mm-hmm. She knew 100% what she was doing. Yeah. She knew that taking this to TikTok would cause mass hysteria to people just start. It would get our attention.
People like conflict. People like.
It was going to go viral.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. People like this stuff.
If you'd have put that in front of me before she posted it, and I could have made $1 million betting somebody that would have gone viral.
Oh, for sure. Like, she knew what she was doing. And
it just solidifies that point, the fact that she did what she did to the photographer.
That is what bothers me as well the most, I think, because, like, I don't know if this photographer does this full time. I don't know if this is her full-time business, if this is just something that she does on the side. I'm going to guess that this is something that provides, you know, like, food on her table at X.
The photographer?
Yeah.
100%.
So, like, I just don't get how you can, people are sleuths, man. They will figure it out. Even if you don't list the name, people will figure out who that photographer is. And I went to that photographer's Instagram and I looked at some of her posts, and not all the comments are nice. And it's from other people who have no idea what they're even talking about, just kind of being mean in the comments to this photographer. And it's not a good look for her, and it's not all her fault. And I just could not imagine being this photographer and having to read all of these nasty comments on my Instagram posts. And, like, I feel like at some point I personally would be like, there's no point, like, there's no coming back from this. It is good to hear the photographer say that, you know, she said the future, you know, is not written yet with, like, how her business is going to go with how this is affected. She said that she has gotten a lot of support from other vendors and other photographers, which is so good to hear. I feel like this is scary, bro. And this is what I wrote down. This is why it's so scary, because I feel, and, like, we talk about this all the time with each other, with our other vendor friends. We talk about it on this podcast. We are very picky with the couples that we work with. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is just now in the last year, maybe, been something that us as photographers in the wedding industry have kind of started opening up about, is when we are having clients with, when we are having meetings with couples, obviously they are quote unquote vetting us to make sure that we are a good fit for them. But it is just as important for us to vet them to make sure that they are a good fit for us as well.
Right.
And this is exactly why that is so important. But it's also why
it's scary.
It's scary is because the photographer said to Mike on the Vendor Table podcast, like, we had the best time together. They had such a good experience.
They clicked super well.
They clicked super well in the first call. The wedding day, the rehearsal, everything was fantastic. There has been great communication. She was like, the vibes were literally immaculate. Like, this is like the client that you like, that everybody dreams of, that you just click so well, and then shit hit the fucking fan. And, like, that is so freaking scary, because we do our very best to make sure that we have a good connection with each one of our couples, to make sure that we vibe well together so we can give them the best experience possible. It's so important. It's the number one thing that we do first and foremost, because we want to give everyone the best experience we can. If we don't have a good connection, we're just not going to give them a good experience or the best experience that they deserve, and they deserve the best. Mm-hmm. And we've turned clients away because we just feel like, hey, I don't think that our personalities are going to mesh.
Yep.
It's not us being mean. It's not us saying we don't want your wedding. It's just us looking out for you, quite honestly.
Right.
And this just goes to show, like, no matter how well you think that you are doing, people will change their mind whenever they decide that they want to change their mind. And obviously, this bride changed her mind a little too late.
And this is one thing that Mike said on the podcast that I freaking loved, because it sets the tone immediately for how you should handle this. Mm-hmm. He said, when a client's taste and their ideal style changes after delivery, there is literally nothing you can do to make them happy in that regard.
Yep.
Which means all these things that the photographer did, in hindsight, weren't going to change her mind.
Right. This bride, and also...
But she did everything right so that it leans in her favor, as far as she gave and she gave and she gave. So the bride is the one that's looking like the bad guy here.
You know, I'm just going to say it how it is. And I don't mean any ill will to anybody. I don't mean any ill will to the bride. I don't have any ill will to the photographer. I'm just going to tell you what I think happened, okay? I think that this bride started planning her wedding. She's so excited, obviously, over the moon, excited to get things going, hire vendors, and she starts booking people.
Which we didn't even get to this yet.
And she's stoked about it. And she thinks she knows what she wants. So she books vendors, okay?
She picks a date. She books vendors.
She changes her mind pretty quickly on some of the vendors that she hires. And we know this to be true.
From my understanding, it was at least the date, the videographer,
yep,
and her dress.
So she had already fired, however you want to say it, canceled her contract with one videographer, hired a different videographer amongst other vendors, okay? And so she's already going through this process of changing her mind as she's planning this wedding.
But the photographer probably didn't know that necessarily.
Right. And now she's finally hired her photographer. Everything goes well because she also is, from a client's perspective, she's like, I freaking love this photographer. She's dope. We have a good connection. I'm really happy with everything that I'm seeing. And then for whatever reason, I don't know if they had an engagement session or not. That's still unknown. I'm gonna guess maybe not because
right.
I don't know. I think that there were a few photos that the bride liked that she saw, and then when she got the gallery, she realized, oh shit, I like her style, but I don't like the way that I look in her style. And the reason why I say that is because just because I'm a photographer doesn't mean I don't get my photo taken. There are styles that I like myself photographed in and styles that I don't. And you just have to do your research. Like, I think that she saw herself in that sepia quote unquote style, and she was like, I don't like how I look in that. And now I'm unhappy and I want a different style. Mm-hmm. But that is not what you hired this girl for. You hired her her style.
She's taking zero responsibility for what she did.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to.
It is okay to change your mind. It is okay to change your mind, but you have to understand that you signed a contract, and you also have to understand that in that contract, you acknowledge that you signed it knowing full well what this girl's photos and work looks like. So yes, you changed your mind, but you can't put that on this photographer. And I keep wanting to say her name, but like, I'm not going to.
No. If you want to know, you just go watch the Dinner Table podcast.
Yeah, you can't put this on her. Like, you changed your mind. Okay, well, I don't know, babe. Like, you made a mistake. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So do you have something that you wanted to add to that?
I've been trying to get to my closing stuff.
Okay.
Because
I have a tip that goes with that.
Well, I'm getting to this first.
Okay,
then.
Go ahead.
Basically, like, the bride refuses to acknowledge that she did anything wrong here, mm-hmm. even though she did. And it is a matter of fact. There's nothing wrong with the fact that she did something wrong and she made a mistake. It's the fact that she is putting all the blame on the photographer.
Yeah.
And then going to social media, and that is 100%, and then saying that it's not her intention to make it blown up, but then does 30 TikToks, and that is 100% petty, attention-seeking behavior. That is mean girl behavior.
Yeah.
And that is what she is doing.
I mean, guys, if you're a client and you're like, she just wants her photos. She just wants her photos from her day. She just wants to love them. I get that 1,000%. And that's all that we want as well, is like for our clients to be happy and have their photos. But there is a way to do it without bullying people. Like, this is probably how this girl pays her mortgage. Like, you have to think about other people before you do something like this, because this is her livelihood. Like, that's not okay.
And literally, this leads right into what I just said, what I have written down. Literally, what this bride is doing is bullying this photographer, because you're taking something that is between you and the photographer mm-hmm. and putting it out to the public to, quote, educate the public. But then you know for certain it's blowing up, and you know for certain what these comments look like because you're seeing them.
Yeah.
And this photographer, yes, there's a lot of support for her, but she's also getting freaking bullied and blasted for dumb shit.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it is never okay under any circumstances, no matter what the freaking situation is, to bully someone like that.
No, definitely not.
Especially if you're not involved.
Yeah. So one thing that I had written down was just a tip. And I know that there's like a lot of tips going around for clients and things like that, and there's only so much that you can do. But one of the biggest tips that I would say, and I maybe wouldn't have advised this prior to this whole situation, but I think that this is a good potential way to make sure that you're making the right decision when hiring a photographer, is obviously ask for the full gallery. Okay, we know that, but when you're looking at a full gallery from a photographer, you're looking at it with like rose-colored glasses, right? Everything hopefully has a certain style. Everything kind of looks like it's from this one photographer with this very specific editing style, okay? But because it's all the same, you are kind of jaded to what else is out there. Okay, so my biggest advice is to take certain images and put them side by side with other styles from different photographers that you're also contemplating. Put them literally next to each other, figure out which one resonates with you more, and think about the future, what you want in the future. Don't think about trends. Don't think about what you like just now. Obviously, what you like now is important, but what you like in 10 years, 20 years, like only 1 year from now is important.
6 months from now?
Yeah, like compare them and take your time. I know that there are photographers are like, oh, like we book up really fast. Okay, that's true. But like, it's not like you have 10 minutes to make this decision. You have a week, a couple weeks. Just do your homework.
And communicate.
Put them side by side. Different photographers' work side by side. Ask opinions. Look at it on iPhones. Look at it on desktops. Look at it and outside on your phone, inside on your phone, on all different screens. Just make sure that you feel 100% solid with the style of photographer that you are choosing. Period. That's like my biggest advice from this.
That's a really good tip, honestly. I hadn't even thought about it until you said that to me. I'm like, that actually makes a lot of good sense, because
when you're looking through a gallery, you're like,
style,
you're immersed in that gallery.
Which is good. That's what the goal is. You don't want to look at a gallery and be taken out of that.
Right.
Because it means there's inconsistencies.
You want to feel like you're there. That's the whole point. But when you're doing that,
you need to have the other stuff next to it so that you know for certain that this is what you want, or you know for certain this is not what you want.
Yeah. Pull it up in different windows. Okay. Have the gallery open and then have Pinterest open with all your inspo and look at it side by side.
Look at it on different screens. Put it on your computer, put it on your laptop, put it on your iPad, put it on your iPhone, put it on your TV, because the coloring and all those things are going to be different.
Yep. I feel like we have had situations that are in this vein of an issue. We haven't had ones that are, this like crazy, serious drama. But we've seen this happen personally. We've had a bride that hired a different photographer, wasn't happy, and then hired us for decor photos and bridal shoots to redo because the florals weren't edited right.
They didn't match what the style she thought she wanted.
And to be honest, like that situation was a quote unquote sepia style photographer. They got the photos and they were like, our florals don't even look like what they look like in real life. And so they had to do like a reshoot. And that goes back to my statement of it's okay to change your mind. It sucks when you change your mind after the deal is done. And that's just something that unfortunately you have to live with, and you have to understand that you made a mistake, and that's okay. And
we all make mistakes.
How can we rectify it? What can we do? In this case, that bride hired me to reshoot bridal portraits. Like, she did what she could do. you know.
Life is not about not making mistakes.
Yeah.
Life is about making mistakes and then learning from those mistakes and not making it again.
Yeah. And educating. But educating in the right way. And I don't think that this bride is educating the public in the right way. I think she's bullying, and I think she's being rude and mean on the internet. And I think
10 minutes of fame.
I think that there is a better way to go about it. I think that it's great. Her intention, I think, is great to educate the public, because I do agree that there needs to be more education out there for clients when they're hiring their vendors, but there's a way and a respectful way to do it. I also have a prediction, and I very well could be wrong.
I hope you're wrong, actually.
I hope that I am wrong, but I think I said this the other day. I really hope that I'm wrong, but I would not be surprised if this bride picks up photography as a hobby.
And then starts trying to charge people for it, using her clout from...
Perhaps. I don't know. I could just see it, like, just her attitude. I could just see her being like, well, let me see if I can do it. I'm not trying to be mean. That's just maybe a small prediction. I also predicted Gypsy Rose's divorce when we did that podcast. So that's why
actually recorded.
That's why I had to do this prediction, is because I was right on the last one. So
maybe I'll put a little plug in here. If I don't, just go watch that one. But maybe if I can find it, maybe I'll just put that in here.
That was very random. But the last time that we did like a podcast like this was the Gypsy Rose thing.
Yeah, totally not even part of our thing, but it was such a big hot topic that we're like, let's talk about it.
And so that's why I just thought about that.
So that's kind of all we have. I do want to end with this part. The photographer was asked if she has been in contact with this bride since this all started, because last thing we know was that she got ghosted after she offered to re-edit. Mm-hmm. She said she has not spoken with them since these videos have been posted. And she said, quote, "But it is something that I cannot speak on at this time," which tells me
there's something going on.
There's some sort of legal action happening, and this is not the last time we're going to hear about this situation.
Did you want to talk about defamation real quick?
Oh, yeah. So if you...
Because there's been a lot of talk about defamation of
I'll
character.
make this really quick because we're kind of past the time that we wanted to have.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not going to dig in too much because I'm not a lawyer.
Well, and Paige did a whole thing.
The legal Paige, our good friend Paige Griffith, did a whole podcast on her episode on her podcast about the legal side of this and the contract side of this. And then she touched briefly on defamation as it pertains to coming from online.
Yeah.
And if this is or isn't a case that could be brought up as defamation.
From the client?
From the photographer toward the client.
Oh, well, yes. But that's what I'm saying. It's like people are like, oh, this is defamation of character for the photographer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like she could sue the
correct
bride.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the things, so if you're interested in what she has to say about
we'll link it.
We'll link the podcast, and we'll link the Vendor Table podcast so you can watch both.
Yeah.
But the very brief description was there are 4 bases that you have to consider for a defamation case. All 4 of them have to be met for it to be taken to court and be considered. And from what I understand, I don't remember what they all are, but when I listened to it, I thought about it. I do not think yet that this is a true defamation case. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Because it always depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the burden of proof.
But
and all
obviously
that stuff.
there's something going on.
There's definitely some sort of legal action being taken because she, quote, cannot speak on this at that time.
Yeah.
So this will be really interesting to see how it plays out, and maybe we'll have Paige on if it does go further, and we'll do maybe a collaborated podcast about that specific stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Whew, this is heavy. This is heavy. This is messy. Our intentions, and we say it all the time, our intentions are just to be kind and respectful to everybody that we encounter, and giving our clients the best experience possible. Am I boring you?
No, I just yawn.
Giving our clients the best experience possible is first and foremost the most important thing to us. And so when something like this happens, there's only so much that you can do, especially in the order of events that it all happened. It's just so unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. And in a day and age where the wedding industry as a whole is becoming scrutinized like it's never been before. This is not something that really sits well.
Yeah.
And we really need to make sure that things are mentioned.
Yeah. I mean,
from the industry standpoint.
For sure. Like,
to educate the public.
It's scary, honestly. Like, it's truly like, oof. It's scary. Better make sure your contracts are tweet.
Yep. We have a link for the Legal Pages podcast, but also if you are interested in any of her contracts for any part of the wedding industry, or she has other like businesses also as far as contracts that she provides for
other vendors.
If you have a service-based business, go check out our website. You clicking this link also supports this podcast.
Yep.
So help us out also. And if you have any questions, comments based on your opinions or thoughts on this topic, put them in the comments on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, go to YouTube and do that.
Yeah.
Leave us a review, 5 stars, all day, every day.
That's pretty much it, guys. I'm sure that more of this will continue to unfold, and we'll all be watching closely, I'm sure. And yeah, I think that's it for this one.
That is
and next week, you'll get our recap, where we've been, what we've been up to. We're going to chit-chat a little about Engage. And yeah, full send on this new season of Feast or Famine. We're happy to be back.
We're doing like a messy launch, but things are going to be like more professional looking.
Yeah.
As far as like, hopefully we have a intro sequence at some point.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
And this might not stay exactly how it is.
Yeah, but we appreciate y'all listening. We appreciate you, dealing with our nonsense always over here. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.